Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morgan, Roth the Motor City Mad Mouth, and I am glad to be joined by my dream team here because you guys are exactly that, man. Steve Balestrieri, welcome back, buddy.
Oh, it's great to be here. I always look forward to our Thursday night get-togethers, and I know we have a good subject tonight, so it should be a lot of fun.
Oh, don't we ever? All right. Rick Curti, Mr.
Yep,
Opinion,
I'm ready.
and we have my running back, Mel Farr Jr. Welcome back, Mel. Let everybody know, listening for the first time, you played in the NFL, so you've been there, done that. Turn the person out here that doesn't know anything about players, and I don't know who the heck would anyways. So, folks, let me give you an overview of the broadcast, okay? We're going to be talking about de facto general managers. And what do I mean by de facto general managers? Well, my goodness, doesn't it seem like they're all over the place in the sports world? Believe me, they are. Now, the focus tonight will mainly probably be on the NBA and the NFL, although I have an interesting situation here that we'll talk about in the National Hockey League. So, without further delay, I do want to let everybody know that you are watching this broadcast on the WSFT network, short for South Florida Tribune. So, for all you folks out there that follow us, everything that are watching the broadcast, you'll find that you can see our show and our content, www.southfloridatribune.com. Follow us on Twitter at Tribune South, and we encourage you to subscribe to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. With that said, I mentioned to you before, de facto general managers. So, first of all, we're going to lead off here with Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson is the guy that got Paul Westhead fired, enter Pat Riley into the picture, the creation of Showtime. And then, of course, you've got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy, Byron Scott, and you name it. So, what I will say one thing about Magic Johnson, when he exerted his influence, Dr. Jerry Buss didn't think twice about making that change. So, you know what, Mel? We're going to lead off with you. What about Magic? I love the guy from Michigan State University, won a national championship in 1979 with Larry Bird, has a championship credence anyway. So, consequently speaking, when people talk about Magic, they think of him in high regard. Was he a de facto general manager, Mel?
No, no, I wouldn't say that. For whatever reason, I can't remember what the situation was around that whole incident. That's been quite some time ago. But obviously, whatever style that that Paul Westhead, whatever style he ran, didn't fit Magic style. Now, Paul Westhead, he went on and did some great things. I think he coached in San Antonio. I think he coached over there at Loyola as well. He did some great things. I think he was coaching Hank Gathers when Hank Gathers passed away.
Right.
But for whatever reason, that his fit didn't fit with Magic, and I think Magic was upset about it. He voiced his opinion, and Dr. Jerry Buss, in his infinite wisdom, listened to Magic Johnson and made a change. And obviously, it changed the course of that franchise for the next decade and a half. So, I don't think Magic was playing general manager at that particular time. I think that he was just trying. Magic wants to win, and that it wasn't about Magic Johnson. It was about winning. And Magic wanted to win. I mean, I think they got Norm Nixon out of there, and they ended up drafting Byron Scott. And brought him in there because Norm was kind of redundant. Norm was a point guard. Magic was a point guard. He wanted to bring the ball down. So I mean, that probably had a lot to do with all that. But no, I don't believe that Magic was a de facto GM at that particular time.
All right, Rick, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just think it was just style situations, and they probably just went to Jerry Buss and said, "Hey, there's this new great coach named Pat Riley, and he fits more into my style." You never hear about Magic saying, "Hey, I'm not going to play if we don't get this player or get that player." I know social media wasn't around at the time, and so you hear more about those kind of things now. I think things back then were like more behind the scenes. But I don't look at him as a guy that said, "I want this guy gone or this guy." I think he just said, "I want to win. We need to draft these players, get this coach that fits more my scheme, my style of play. And we can bring winners." And look what I mean. They got Byron Scott, they got Worthy. I mean, I remember Showtime with the Lakers. I remember, Byron Scott and Worthy and Magic and
Kurt Rambis.
Kurt
Kurt
Rambis and
Rambis.
Cooper and I remember them. I remember them all.
I can do the whole start. I can do the starting lineup.
Yeah, I remember Showtime.
From their height to what school they went to and everything. I know it all.
I love their whole. I loved Showtime. I lived there when it was Showtime, so it was great. It was fun, and Magic changed the course of direction of the Lakers just by saying we need to get Pat Riley, and I mean they're legends, So it was probably good that he said all that, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not. This time it worked out great because the Lakers are legendary and one of the greatest franchises in all sports.
All right, Steve.
Yeah, I agree with these two guys. I don't think Magic was playing GM as much as, he felt like they weren't going in the right direction. And I'm not a big basketball guy, but I remember when that was happening. I'm sure if that had happened today with social media as it is, Magic probably would have taken a lot of heat for it. But it's hard to argue with success, and they had a ton of it once Pat Riley got there.
Well, the only thing I'll say about it is Magic Johnson is a god with the Lakers, okay? And anybody that could go ahead and play the pivot when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is down, and I'm talking about a 6'9", 6'10" point guard, play the pivot, turn it around. He's a guy with the Lakers. So you know what? We'll make it a clean sweep here with the four of us. No, Magic Johnson was not a de facto general manager. And in Magic, we trust, but no, they don't put that on currency.
No.
But I'm letting you guys get off easy with Magic, okay? Now it gets even more fun. And if you're a Green Bay Packer fan, then you know who the heck I'm talking about. And I know we can do an entire broadcast on it, so we're not going to get too elaborative here. I have a lot of ground to cover, but we'll just make sure that we know enough here, okay, so that we know where we're going with. With that said, we'll start where we finished with Steve Balestrieri. Let's talk about good old Aaron Rodgers.
Well, Aaron Rodgers, I think you can make the argument that, yes, he was trying to act like a de facto GM. He saw what worked for Tom Brady after he left New England. And, I think you can make the argument Brady was probably the biggest de facto GM of anyone, but that's for another time. But, yeah, looking at Aaron Rodgers, again, he was leveraging himself. Last year, it was getting really old. I mean, it was like, I'm going to retire. I'm going to be the Jeopardy host. I want to get traded. I played my last down. And, he just wanted everything his way. And that wasn't so much about winning as a team. It was about winning for Aaron. And I think there's the difference between him and Magic. Magic wanted to win as a team. I think you can make the argument that's what Brady was doing down in Tampa. That's why, I consider him a de facto GM to a degree, even when he was in New England, because he took all those team-friendly deals. That was all about surrounding the team with better players. Aaron just wanted to be coddled, looked up to, and I know Candy doesn't like to hear any of this, but Aaron's all about Aaron and not about the team.
All right, Mel, can you top Balestrieri's act?
I think Aaron was just, for once he had an opportunity to flex his muscles a little bit. I think he felt he had an opportunity to flex his muscle, and I think he just used that opportunity to try to get some of the things that he wanted. Now, they may have been legitimate gripes as far as things that he felt that he needed in order to take that team to the next level. But in my opinion, Aaron, from everything from the outside looking in, it seems like Aaron is very selfish, and it's all about Aaron. I just think that really, I don't think he was necessarily being a de facto GM. I think he was trying to see how far he could take it, and was really just trying to flex his muscle because he knew, based on everything that he had done last offseason, that everybody knew that he wasn't happy. There was a possibility that he was going to retire last year, wasn't going to play, or going to hold out, or whatever the case may have been. And he expressed some of his concerns, and he was able to get some of the things that he wanted. But the things that he ended up doing right before training camp, those are things that he could have done. Those are conversations that he could have had right after the season. I think he just waited, and he really had a gun to their head, and they were really willing to do whatever they needed to do in order to appease Aaron Rodgers and to make sure that Aaron Rodgers came to camp. I mean, they went through the same thing, not to this degree though, but they just went through the exact same scenario with Brett Favre. He was always, after every season, he was going to retire, and Brett wasn't for Brett, it was really sincere about whether or not he wanted to play. He loved playing, but he hated practice and he hated meetings, and it was really whether or not he wanted to put himself through that stuff again. I don't get any indication. Well, I mean, Aaron may not like to practice much or whatever, but I've never heard him say anything like that. But obviously, with him flirting with Jeopardy last year, he has some other interests that he might want to pursue some other things. So I don't really look at him as a de facto GM. I just think that Aaron was just being Aaron and really just trying to throw his weight around a little bit, flex his muscle, because this was probably the only time in his career that he had an opportunity to do so.
Okay. Rick?
Well, when you talked about quarterbacks from Green Bay, I'm thinking Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers, because they're both divas to me. They're not de factos, they're divas. They're selfish, they're drama queens. It's all about them. That's all they care about. And Magic got 5 rings, and Aaron, you only got 1. So, you just need to go and play. I mean, he got the GM fired. He wanted Mike McCarthy gone, which he eventually left. They've done everything to make this man happy, and he's never, ever happy. He's always talking about retiring. He does these snarky interviews and sarcastic interviews and always throws the Packers under the bus, and it's just like, you should be humble and grateful for where you are. Now they're going to pay him like some $40 million a year. I keep hearing that they want to pay him now. So to me, Aaron wasn't about, hey, I want Green Bay to win. It's all about how much money I can get, how famous I can get. And it's pretty much he's a very selfish player, in my opinion. He's a great player, but he's a selfish player, and he knows that Green Bay, I mean, who do they have? Love? And they're gonna get rid of Rodgers to replace him with Love. They're trying to get rid of Love right now too. So all the rumors I hear that he's going to Denver and all that, he's probably most likely going to stay in Green Bay. And I just think he's just doing it just to get more money and just to be. He's just a selfish player.
All I'll say about the whole thing is he obviously got Randall Cobb there. He wanted his favorite receiver, hated to see him go. And in order to keep this response short, because we have a lot of other ones to get to, there was a point when I used to watch soap operas, actually some of my favorite soap operas in the past. Now that for all our female listeners that probably want to know, I just really like General Hospital. I used to like One Life to Live. So those guys are actually pretty good.
Laura.
And I got to tell you, when I was at USF, by the way, I'm wearing University of South Florida attire tonight. That's where I graduated. Okay. So we have a new soap opera I'm going to make, As the Rodgers Turns, As the World Turns. So go figure. Stay tuned. We probably will be dumb enough to do a separate show on this anyways, but we're giving you a little bit of a taste of what we're in for. But As the Rodgers Turns, stay tuned. Randall Cobb, etc. In the end, I think probably he will stay in Green Bay, but I'm not going any further. But what I am going to do, though, is go back to Steve Balestrieri, because he falls into the acronym category called GMTA. Great minds think alike. And now that leads us to Tom Brady, who actually ran the Buccaneers. Whatever Tom wants, Tom gets. Whether we want Leonard Fournette, whether we want Rob Gronkowski, etc.
Antonio Brown.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you know what? What do you get? You end up winning a Super Bowl. So I said my piece at the front. Okay. So whatever Tom wants, Tom gets. Hey, 2 years of Super Bowl. Life's not bad in Tampa. And just to give everybody a preview again, we will be doing a future broadcast on Tom Brady. Don't want to get too heavy on this one tonight. Just a basic appetizer on Tommy. And then we have other ones that'll definitely require a bit more comments there. So with that said, Mr. Patriot, Steve, Tom, the floor is yours with Tom Brady.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Brady, for years, the NFL Players Association wasn't really pleased with him because he was taking less money than he should have been getting paid. And, that was like I guess you could say, it was one of those handshake deals behind the scenes with the Patriots, so they could surround him with better football players. But I thought he took it to a different level when he got to Tampa. That kind of lit a fire under him. He really wanted to win last year, and he convinced the powers that be that first they had to bring in Rob Gronkowski, which they did, Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown. And, it didn't end well for Antonio Brown in 2021, but you go back to last year, he was a nice piece for them. So, they ended up winning the Super Bowl. And again, like we talked about earlier with Magic, it was all about winning. It was about getting the team over the top. And, Brady isn't shy about sharing the spotlight with other players. He's always been that way, and it's all about winning.
Well, I'll tell you what.
When you hear Brady's comments, when he talks, they ask him, I mean, this goes back to his earliest days. They ask him comments or questions about himself, and he'll always defer to the team did this,
right?
The team did that. So.
Yeah, he's the most unselfish athlete that I've ever seen. Anybody that could do a sales job on somebody to get Antonio Brown, my goodness, you know what? It makes Mark Spitz's gold medal look like gold plated. So, yeah, you get Antonio Brown.
The sad part about it is Antonio Brown has a ton of talent to play football.
Yeah,
it's just the off-field stuff that derailed his career. I mean, because you look at him, he was successful everywhere he went when he put his mind to playing football. And that's the sad part about it is he kind of threw all that away.
Yeah, no, I don't know about that, Steve. I think the saddest part about Antonio Brown in this NFL these days is he might land another job. And if I were a betting man, I would say with the Ravens, but we'll leave that for another time. But I got to tell you, Tom Brady's a good salesman, but you know what, though? He delivers championships. You got to give him his due. And I don't mind the fact that he's a Michigan Wolverine either. So I have a little bit of Midwest bias there. Not that Mel Farr's looking at me with an interesting look. Doesn't care for the Michigan Wolverines. But with that said, Mel, we'll go ahead and segue over to you and give us your opinion on Tom Brady.
I think when you have a quarterback as great as Tom, you want to ask him, hey, who do you like? This is who we're looking at. Guys that we can fit under the cap. Who do you like in this? Who do you like out of these guys here? Obviously, he's going to pick Gronkowski because he has familiarity with the guy. Antonio Brown, for whatever reason, he's taking a liking to him, but he understands the type of talent that Antonio Brown is, and they understand that, hey, we can get this guy under the salary cap. It'd be a great deal for him as long as we can keep him between the ditches. I think everything will work out for him and everything will work out for us. Unfortunately, they couldn't keep him in between the ditches this year. But I don't think he was being a de facto GM. I mean, he wasn't the highest paid guy there as far as at the quarterback position in Tampa. I mean, he took a modest salary, 25, 30 million, whatever the case may have been. And he left some room. He left some meat on the bone for some other guys to get in there because he understands, he can't do it by himself. And we talked about it last week. These quarterbacks getting these big salaries, it's got to come from somewhere. When you're in a salary cap system, that's coming from somewhere. So you're going to miss a couple good players. You're going to lack depth. If a couple of your starters go down, a couple of your key starters go down, you're going to lack depth, or you're not going to be able to retain some of those key starters that you had before. But no, I think with his resume, I believe that he deserves to have a say in personnel because he knows what he likes on the offensive side of the ball. Defensive side of the ball, hey, you guys do whatever you want to do over there.
Right.
But as far as wide receivers, running backs, yeah, I think he should have a say. If he says, yeah, I like Lenny, Lenny came along fine. If you guys can figure out a way to keep him here, great. If you can't, I understand. And that's probably the kind of conversation that they had with him. Hey, yeah, I like Antonio Brown, and I know he's got some, this, that, and whatnot, but he's a heck of a football player. If there's a way that you guys can work it out and keep him, in the salary cap, I'd love to work with him. Gronkowski, hey, he's decided he wanted to come back. He wants to come on down here and join us. You all know what he's capable of doing. If you guys can make it work out, I'd like to have him here as well. I think those kind of conversations happen, but it wasn't that, hey, you either get these guys or else. It wasn't that type of conversation. Hey, I think these guys could help our football team and help us accomplish our ultimate goal, which is to win a championship. And when you talk to management like that, or you talk to the coach like that, you're more than likely you're going to get what you want.
All right, Rick.
Well, as I like to call him Teflon Tom, because he is Teflon Tom. Like whatever he wants, he'll get. And if he wants this player, he'll get that player. I mean, how can you argue with him? He's won more Super Bowls than any quarterback, and he's the greatest quarterback of all time, one of the greatest athletes of all time. He played 24 years. My goodness, till he's in his mid 40s. I mean, I could barely get out of bed without my back hurting, and we're around the same age. So, so I mean, of course you're going to listen to him, and he wants his buddy Rob Gronkowski. You can't argue with his resume, and with Antonio Brown. I mean, and didn't Antonio Brown live with him? So he really wanted to help him out as well, and he at that time, he was great. So if he wants his players, he'll get that players, and you really can't say he's an Aaron Rodgers or a diva. I mean, with the tantrums, whatever. But with him taking all those pay cuts with New England, and then after a while, I think he just got tired of it and said enough of these pay cuts, and they're not getting me any good players. And I kind of want to move on, and I kind of want to show people that I'm the GOAT of the Patriots, not Belichick. And he wanted to move on, and he went to Tampa, and he just said, no more team friendly deals anymore. We're gonna do this. This is how we're gonna do it. I want to win a championship. I think he was hungry more last year than he was ever with the Patriots. He wanted to prove to everybody that I could win somewhere else, that I'm not a game manager, as a lot of people called me. So whatever Teflon Tom wants, Teflon Tom got in Florida, and he won a championship, and they came pretty close last season, and he's going to go down as the greatest quarterback of all time unless we see some other guy come out that can wow us again. But you're never going to see anyone like that probably in the next 30 years.
All right, so you guys have gotten off really easy so far, so I'm going to really challenge you a little bit now. I just want to let everybody know who's joining in out there. Feel free to send us some questions. Be more than happy to get your comment on the air to talk to my group of experts. And, of course, feel free to contact us. We'll be more than happy to mention you. So you guys have gotten off easy so now I'm challenging you with LeBron James. Let me get a little bit of information about LeBron James. First of all, Shaquille went to Cleveland, to try to win a title with James over there. Then he goes to Miami with the old big three. What was it? Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and them. And then they had their old song and dance routine about the 9 million championships that they weren't going to win. Yeah. And they were lucky to get at least 2. Which to me, I can really have a rant about super teams, which I don't really like. And I'm not going to get into a lot because we have a lot of ground to cover tonight. But, he leaves for Miami, but he couldn't have a power with Pat Riley because you know what? Pat Riley built that team, and Pat Riley is the Miami Heat. With that said, he muscles his way to get Russell Westbrook to the Los Angeles Lakers. And we all know right now the Lakers are playing to try to get in the play-in tournament. So, LeBron James, I know, has been to 10 NBA finals, won 4 of them. Of all the de facto GMs out there, Rick, we're going to let you, Mr. Opinion,
take a
crack at LeBron James.
I appreciate it. Well, LeBron is a great player. There's no doubt. He's a phenomenal, just like Aaron Rodgers. But if you had a poster of a diva, that's him. Is he a de facto? I think he's just an out of control, egomaniacal guy. I think it's all about, does he want to win? Yeah, of course he wants to win. They all want to win, but he goes through so many extremes about doing it, going from team to team to team. He does the same thing. He builds it up, and then he gets tired. He goes somewhere else, does it again. This year has been nothing but a disaster. Getting Westbrook and Dwight Howard. They just got rid of Jordan. It's just been a disaster. And he's a great player and all that stuff. But LeBron recently now is become just. To me, it's all about him right now, and he wants to win, with no doubt about it. But it's just the lengths he does at it, And, eventually he's going to get tired of going to the Lakers, maybe. He said he wants to be there forever, but, now you keep hearing him say that he wants to play with his son for one season now. So is he a de facto GM? He's the president, the CEO, the founder. He's the coach. He's the general manager. He's the everything right now. And, they're listening to him. And if Jerry Buss was, around right now, I don't think he'd put up with it. I think he'd just say, you know what, LeBron, I don't got time for this. You're just a diva. And we're tired of hearing about all. I mean, he's kicking like fans out of games because they're taunting him. Who does that? That's crazy. So he's just is he a selfish player? I believe he is a selfish player. Does he want to win? Yeah, but just the lengths he goes at it and just the way he acts and getting, kicking fans out because he doesn't like what they say about him. It's gotten ridiculous.
All right, Steve. Rick certainly put a lot out there. And I can tell you before Steve gets involved here, there's no way Jerry Buss would put up with it. No way. All right,
No.
Steve, take it away.
And it seems like every couple of years he goes through these phases where, he works his way out of one franchise and goes to the next. I agree with a lot of what Rick said there. Again, I'm not a big basketball guy, but I mean, how can you not see LeBron in the news every night watching SportsCenter or whatever? It's just I don't put him in the category of Rodgers per se, but he's right up there. It all has to be about LeBron,
Right.
And everything has to be about him. He does want to win, but at the same time, it's kind of weird situation because he insists on having the guys around him that he wants, and then he wants to get rid of them and get somebody else. So I don't know. I'm not a big LeBron fan. I mean, there's no doubt about his talent. He's incredible on the basketball court. And again, that's what all this comes down to is you can get away with all this stuff if you're an elite player. Because if you're the bench guy, you're not going to have any say whatsoever. And
Right.
That's why LeBron can have a big say in all this stuff. But I agree with you when the old Lakers, that wouldn't fly.
All right, Mel, you're an LA guy anyway, so what can I tell you being from UCLA? What's your take on Mr. James?
He is definitely a de facto GM. And the thing about LeBron, when he comes to your franchise, if you have any younger players, he's going to gut you. He's going to, and when he leaves, he's going to leave you with nothing. So because you've gotten rid of all your young talent, then you have to trade away draft picks to get people that he likes. So you've mortgaged your future with these old guys that he likes because he likes to play with veteran type players. And then once he leaves, whenever he leaves, then you're left there with the ruins. You're left there to try to pick up the pieces. And that's what's going to happen with the Lakers. I mean, they've mortgaged their future, brought in these different individuals. They don't mesh. They don't fit. And I can't understand how the Lakers could allow this to happen when the team just doesn't fit. I mean, it's obvious that they just don't fit. He was able to get some things done. When he went down to Miami, he was able to put that together. Coming back to Cleveland, he was able to put it together, but unfortunately, Kevin Durant decided that he wanted to join the Golden State. That made it very difficult for him. Then with some of his outside ventures, he said, "Hey, I'm going to take my talents to Los Angeles. I think he likes it out there." They have their production company and so forth, so it kind of works with him being out there in LA and doing some of the things that he's doing in the entertainment business. But there's no question that LeBron pulls all the strings there, and he doesn't have to be honest with you. I mean, there's no threat of him leaving, but I mean, you can have a collaborative effort. We can talk about it. Now, I don't know if LeBron's going in there and say, "Hey, I like this guy, I like that guy," but you guys do what you want to do, because I'm pretty sure that he was the one that wanted Westbrook there, and that fit just doesn't work. LeBron at this point in his career is like Magic Johnson. He's really a point guard, and he needs he needs shooters around him. He doesn't need guys that can't shoot. Doesn't need it. I mean, you look at every time I look at the box score, I see Malik Monk's 2 for 7. I'm like, my God. And then Trevor Ariza, he's 1 for 5 or something like that. I'm like, Jesus, he needs guys that can shoot. Ariza, he's old. Malik Monk, he's a young kid, but he's struggling for whatever reason. The kid that they wanted to hold on to, that they should have went ahead and traded him, THT or whatever, Talon Horton Tucker, whatever his name is, they should have let him go. You look at the young kids and what they're doing in the league. Everybody that they let go, whether it's the kid in New York, whether it's Julius Randle,
right,
whether it's Brandon Ingram, even Lonzo Ball. They put so much pressure on him. Magic put pressure on him initially when he drafted him. But there was so much pressure on that kid. Look at Jordan Clarkson. You look at the kid up there in Minnesota, Russell. He was at Golden State. Now he's at Minnesota. I mean, you look at these guys. I mean, these guys have become all-stars.
Right.
So they just needed some time and somebody to work with them. And LeBron could have been a big brother to these guys, and they could have went to the promised land together. But he wants to, probably trying to get Carmelo a chip, and I understand that. Carmelo, he was a top 50 player, and and you look at it, the Lakers have, and really Dwight Howard should have been on that list. But I mean, right now they got, if you include Dwight Howard, they got 4 top 75 players right now on their team, but together they don't play worth anything. I remember when the Lakers, when they got Gary Payton and Karl Malone, and they had Shaq and they had Kobe. You're like, man, they're going to run through Detroit. No, that didn't happen.
Right.
It didn't happen at all. It was a gentleman's sweep. The Lakers won the first game, and then the Pistons came back and won the next 4.
Called team basketball. Yeah. Remember when I talked to Joe Dumars? Let me continue to move this thing along a little bit. You make a lot of great points, Mel. I know we talk a little bit about Kevin Durant, but he's the one guy I don't view as the de facto general manager. If anything, I like about Kevin, very unselfish player. And we'll segue over to another thing, but let's talk about super teams in general. We don't have to get detailed about this. I personally think super team / playground basketball, and I have to get this in one time. The NBA, I call the National Drama League. So I have to get that National Drama League in one time. But I do believe that super teams in the NBA will ruin this league if they continue to go with the pace they will. So with that said, I'll ask each of you to comment on that real quickly. A few more names I want to get to before we go off the air. Rick, some thoughts about super teams and the modern NBA.
It's awful. I haven't watched the game in 15 years, to be quite honest. I used to love watching Barkley. David Stern was the guy, and Adam Silver is just a puppet. I mean, he does everything to make the players happy, and these egos, not only with LeBron, but James Harden and all these egomaniacal basketball players that can just kind of do whatever they want now. There is no way in the world, if David Stern was still alive, he would allow this. There is no way imaginable. He was the guy that ruled with an iron fist, and I mean, he kept, it was not about Jordan or Bird or Magic. It was about David Stern. And Adam Silver, to me, is nothing but a puppet. He just does everything to make the players happy. And the game with there's no defense. It's all shooting, and it's unwatchable for me.
All right, Steve.
I totally agree with that. That's why kind of, years ago I got turned off with the NBA because, I think that there's too many, it's all about me type situations, and the players, the players have a lot more power in the NBA than they do in the NFL, which, we were talking about offline because, with the amount of contracts, the money that they got, the owners and the league is not as strong as the NFL. So the players basically have a lot more say. They can work their own magic if they want to. And I think it's going to be the downfall of the league eventually. I think people are going to get tired of it.
What do you think, Mel?
Yeah, it's a big problem. I mean, the super team, let's go back. the, the super team that Golden State had, they drafted that team. They cultivated that team organically with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson. They drafted the Dancing Bear. I can't think of his name, out of Michigan State. They drafted him.
Yeah, Draymond Green.
They drafted him. They did bring in, Iguodala, but that's the one person that they brought in. But they did theirs organically, and these guys grew up together, and all of a sudden they got pretty good. They got very good, and but they built that team organically. Now, what LeBron did when he decided to go to Miami is totally different. Yeah, he built a super team because he wanted to win a championship. I mean, he understands the importance of winning championships, and he wanted to make sure that he got one. I don't particularly care for him, but I understand, especially when you get two or three guys together. I mean, when Shaq came out to LA, I was all for that, obviously. But Shaq was still young at that particular time. The Lakers weren't doing very well at that particular time, and Shaq was a big reason why the Lakers were able to rattle off those championships while he was there. It was because of Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant. Kobe was starting to ascend there, but Shaq was, he was the bigger than life character at that particular time. I don't really look at that as being necessarily a super team. I mean, they had Derek Fisher there, who that was somebody that they drafted. They did bring in Big Shot Rob. Fox was already there, if I'm not mistaken. They drafted him, so they had some. Walton. They had some players there, and then they just plugged in some pieces. But what I don't like is when you bring in 3, 4, 5 different people, and you get rid of a whole bunch of folks, and then you got to try to put these pieces in there that really don't fit. And that's the problem that the Lakers have. You get rid of everybody, you bring in these folks, and then because you got all these high salaries or big egos or whatever the case may be, then you got to get a guy like they had from Texas A&M and just hope that he plays above his head, that left and went to Cleveland or Chicago or whatever. I think he went to Chicago.
Right.
I can't think of his name right now, with the headband.
That's okay.
I can't do his name.
It's not material anyway. So, but I'm with you. Let me just add a couple things to it because I want to continue. I have a lot more ground to cover, so I hope Mel you can hang with me as long as possible because this is getting even more interesting. So bear with us, okay, big guy. But I do want to talk about part of the reason why we have these super teams is really a result of the Olympics too, and the NBA participating in the Olympics. These guys wanting to play with each other, and as a result, when you build those types of relationships, you see what's happened, and that's what we created. Now, Mel, you brought up another interesting point, which I really thought was strong, and that being this, okay? It's one thing to go ahead and everybody sign at the same place, take a little bit of money here and there. But when you build through the draft and then you add some reinforcements, okay, that's a different animal. I'm not even going to touch that in terms of what a super team is all about. That's called shrewd drafting is what you call and development, and then at that point, add another piece or two. You have a great team. Bingo. That's how you create your championship. So, Mel, thank you very much for bringing that point up. I just want to make sure that I didn't overlook the point that I believe the Olympics are a part of that problem. But building them internally, fitting, no big deal. I'm all right to super teams. But the way playground basketball is wrecking things, that's another story. Once again, I know I repeat myself. Sometimes I tend to do that for reinforcement. So I want to move this along a little bit more. Some things will require a bit more attention than the other. But Ben Simmons, my goodness, this guy hasn't even played yet. And I'm going to tie Ben Simmons to James Harden so that we can connect the dots here, okay? James Harden has done an outstanding job orchestrating his way out of Houston as well as Brooklyn. I don't care if he's 3-0 right now with the Nets playing with Joel Embiid. Don't get me wrong. They're going to be an excellent tandem. They could go deeper into the playoffs. But Ben Simmons, to me, I don't know if he does have any mental issues or not. I'm not a mental health expert, so I'm not going to touch that one with a 10-foot pole. But let's combine Ben Simmons and James Harden. To me, you've got two de facto general managers that simply forced their way out of their existing situations. And you know what? They had no choice. I'm not going to say who won that trade, who wouldn't. That's not my responsibility, probably in yours either. So with that said, Mel, what's your take on the Ben Simmons / James Harden situation?
it's an ugly situation. I mean, the players have a lot of power in the NBA. I mean, kudos to them for being able, for having that kind of power and be able to exercise that power. But that's going to be a problem somewhere down the line, man. I don't like it for as far as what Ben Simmons did. You got to be able to. The only way, my dad used to always say, the only way you grow, the only way you get better is through criticism, and not mean or cruel, but constructive criticism. And these kids nowadays, man, they're just so thin-skinned that you have to be so careful about everything that you have to say around them. Otherwise, you might offend them, or you might hurt their little feelings. And once you hurt their feelings, then they're going to pout because they're accustomed to getting things their way. And if they can't have it their way, then they don't want to be involved anymore. And I just don't like it. I really don't. Doc said what he said. If Ben was offended by it, the hell, Joel Embiid said what he said last year about Ben passing up a layup or a dunk right underneath the basket. Joel said what he had to say. If Ben had a problem with it, he should have been in the gym working and getting better. I mean, that's what you do. I mean, you either get better or you let that stuff destroy you. One of the two. And it was constructive criticism. James Harden, at some point in time, there's not going to be enough assets to trade for James Harden. I mean, I think he's still. I think his bird rights went with him, so he can get some kind of ridiculous type of a contract.
Yeah, well, they can sign him to an extension. They could conceivably have him for another year and a half. So I think they're all right. And the biggest thing here is Daryl Morey went ahead and orchestrated this brilliantly because he knew it was his strategy to get him out of Houston to Philadelphia. Only he took a detour to Brooklyn to do it. But yeah, I'm not going to get into his salary. All I know is when James Harden doesn't want to play, he can dog his way out, be over shape, and that's a product of the weak NBA, as Rick Curti's been mentioning with Adam Silver all along, and nobody gets away with that with David Stern. But yeah, Mel, you are right, okay, in terms of these guys. And let's not forget about the fact that James Harden, by the way, hasn't won a championship ring yet either. So, Mel, you want to continue your thought, or you want to defer to the other guys?
No, I mean, that's what, go ahead, Rick.
All right, Rick, go ahead. We know you're definitely chomping at the bit to talk about this.
Ben Simmons is just lazy. That's all he is. He can't, shoot a 3-pointer. He can't even develop himself. He just looks like he could care less about being there. He's got guaranteed money, and he's just a spoiled, entitled, thin-skinned brat. He really is. And I'm glad that Doc Rivers went, it was public to show people. Now the guy got back spasm. He hadn't played a game. I mean, it's obvious what they're trying to do. They don't want him to go to Philadelphia because they know he'll get booed out of the building. But I mean, this guy is so lazy, and it's sad because I thought he was going to be a great player. He's just a lazy, spoiled human being. James Harden is like, Aaron Rodgers and just a diva. It's all about him. He's poison. Everywhere he goes, he's never happy. Next year, I guarantee you with the Sixers, he'll complain about them and demand a trade and go somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised if he went to the Lakers last year. I wouldn't be surprised if LeBron reaches out to James Harden and says, come and join me, man. We really need you here. Because LeBron wants to surround himself with such great players. And for a guy who wants to be a great player, it's like he's afraid to have the ball at the last minute to have the game-winning shot. He wants them to have it. And then when they don't win the game, he can blame them. So I would be surprised if Harden went to LA and joined LeBron, and that would be even more of a complete disaster. But those two guys are the poster, are what's wrong with the NBA. And Adam Silver needs to get it in control or get somebody else. They need someone like a David Stern type that rules with an iron fist and just says, no, it's not about you guys. It's about the league, because the game is just so bad right now. There is just absolutely it's all offense, and there is absolutely no defense at all. It's bad.
All right. Well, Steve, I love it when you're just absorbing all this information for a guy that doesn't care for the NBA. But before you go ahead and interject, Steve, Mel and Rick make some interesting points, but we won't go into a whole lot of detail about this. But in college, you have the transfer portal, all because of what Mel said. Nobody can go out there and handle constructive criticism / coaching and tough love. And again, we're not going to go into a lot of detail. I did want to make mention of the transfer portal where you have free agency, so to speak, in college athletics, which I think is ruining the game, but that's for another time. I just want to get that thought in. All right, Steve, I know you've done an incredible job absorbing Ben Simmons and James Harden, and you're getting an NBA lesson here. So
Well,
go ahead, because I have a couple more
you
things.
know, and again, I've said multiple times, I'm not really an NBA guy, but again, I see it on the on television. I listen to some of the the analysts, and the big thing with Simmons, I mean, you want to be a big star in the NBA, and as both of the other guys have said tonight, the NBA is all about scoring, and he is not Simmons. I'm talking about. He's not really a shooter. I mean, I was seeing something on ESPN about him. I think what is he? I think he's only like when it comes to 3-pointers, he's making like 1 out of 7 3-pointers, which isn't going to win you many basketball games. I know he's a defensive guy, but when you have to rely on other people to score, then that's not really a good thing when it comes down to winning championships. And then I know that there was a lot of bad press about him in Philly with he didn't take very well to the comments by Doc Rivers. And if you can't take criticism and you can't take coaching, you're not going to be long in any kind of a situation anywhere. And James Harden is exactly like Rick described him. So I don't think that's going to work out either. So
it's okay. Hey, listen, you know what? Steve Balestrieri is getting more NBA on this show than he's probably going to get for the next.
This is more NBA than I've talked since Bill Russell retired.
I can only imagine.
Me too.
That's a great analogy. Well, unfortunately, it doesn't let up because I have 2 other things in the NBA, and then I might even throw a curveball and bring up a little hockey. How's that sound? Okay. So bear with us, Mel. Okay. It's only getting a little bit better. Okay. When I bring about Mr. Unvaccinated, no, not Aaron Rodgers. He was the one that was immunized. I'm talking about Kyrie Irving. Okay. Who, by the way, at least does have a championship in his pocket compared to James Harden. Kyrie Irving, to me, is another thing that's wrong with the NBA. This guy here, when he won with LeBron James, you know what? All I'll say to give you a little bit more time, because I want to move to other better topics, is I can't stomach Kyrie Irving. Okay. And I don't agree with Stephen A. Smith about much of anything. I really don't. But Stephen A. Smith is hammering the daylights out of this guy, and Kyrie Irving deserves every ounce of criticism he's getting. He's a part-time player. He's selfish. And all I can say is, once again, everything that's wrong with the NBA stems with Kyrie Irving. With that said, Mr. Opinion, take a shot there. We got a couple more things I want to get to.
Yeah, he's another selfish. He's another James Harden. He's just he's poison. And he just doesn't. To me, he's another lazy guy. Don't want to play. He's got no passion for the game. He's made all the money in the world. He's set for life. And this is like, I'll play whenever I feel like it. And it's just like he's a joke. He's a complete joke. This is a guy that said that the world was flat. The guy that dinosaurs don't exist. So I really don't care much about him anyway. I mean, he's outrageous, crazy. I don't know. He does it for attention, or he really believes it. I really don't care. But to me, he's just like, I'll play when I feel like playing. And if these NBA players spend more time on the basketball court instead of the strip clubs, the NBA would probably be a lot better. But it's just all about me. That's just the mentality. It's just these young players today are just completely selfish. They want to take a shortcut winning championships by getting all their buddies together. Kyrie Irving is another poison in the NBA, like Harden and Ben Simmons, and I don't even put LeBron up there because he's such an egomaniacal maniac. It's why I don't watch the NBA no more. I used to love seeing the rivalry between Jordan and Bird, and there's no rivalries no more because they're all playing with each other. And I'm from LA. I smile every time the Lakers lose. I really do, because it's like that's what you get. So Kyrie's just another poison, and I wish he would just go away.
All right, Steve. Obviously, you're laughing here.
Well, again, the Boston sports media didn't, I guess, take to Kyrie too well. He was. I remember when he was with the Celtics. He was trying to, get. I believe it was Anthony Davis, with the Celtics, and then he kind of like, well, no, I don't want him, and he's just. You talk about everything that's wrong with the NBA. I think you can look at a guy like Kyrie, because like I said, I remember he was trying to get that one player. It might have been Anthony Davis. I'm not sure.
I believe you're right, Steve.
Yeah, and then so Danny Ainge, I believe, was trying to get him with the Celtics, and then Kyrie said, "No, I don't like him anymore."
Yeah.
So it was like, he's just, I don't know. He's another one it's all about him, and it's not about anybody else. And isn't he refusing to play home games right now or something?
Well, he's not allowed to because of the mandate in New York City because of the vaccine.
He
So
also
the guy's a part-time player is what he is.
He also didn't want to play some games because he said he was Muslim, and he was taking the days off to, be a Muslim. So that was his other excuse to not play, was that he was Muslim.
All I'll say is Kyrie Irving has invented more excuses not to go ahead and play games, which is why it pains me to agree with Stephen A. Smith on this particular guy. Mel, okay, you're a former player, okay? And I promise you guys, it does get easy with the next guy I'm going to talk about. So we're getting the filet done here, okay? And then we're going to have the dessert and then have a couple more things. So I'm not trying to make everybody hungry if you eat late. Of course, on the West Coast, you probably eat at dinner time anyhow. Mel, you know what? Kyrie Irving, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Kyrie, he's a special talent, which we all know, but he's a very mercurial individual. You never know what's going on in his mind. He left a great situation in Cleveland because he wanted to be the man, because his ego got in the way. He wanted to be the man, and LeBron did tell them not to trade him, but they went ahead and did so anyway. I think Kyrie threatened to have surgery on a knee or something like that, and they ended up trading him and getting Isaiah Thomas, which is nowhere near the value of Kyrie Irving, and that didn't last long. And not only did they get Isaiah Thomas, they got a wounded Isaiah Thomas at that. So, Kyrie, he wants, and the thing about it, the sad thing about it is, careers are short. When you look at in the grand scheme of things, and look at life and how long life has been in existence on this planet, and how long your life is in relation to how long life has been living on this planet, and then your playing career, when you look at it from that point of view, it's very, very short. And I think there's going to come a time where he's going to be like, man, I really squandered a lot of opportunities to play a game that I say that I loved. If you really love the game, you're going to do what you need to do to be out there to play in the game, to participate in the game. Now he wants to make. And this isn't even about him getting the vaccination. He said he's standing up for all the people who are being forced to get vaccinated. So he's standing up for the voiceless. He's giving a voice to the voiceless. Really, to me, it's just Kyrie just doesn't want to. He just wants to do what he wants to do. Bottom line, and that is a problem. That's a big problem. The NBA does have a problem. They have a problem, and it's getting bad. Guys play when they want to play. They don't play when they don't want to play. They're not happy somewhere. They force teams to trade them. They've got a problem that they've got to that they're going to have to get their arms around. Otherwise, it will destroy the game, and it will alienate the people who pay the player salaries, and that's the fans. The fans eventually are going to get tired of all this stuff. And, the next time they have a collective bargaining, I'm sure that the owners are going to try to get some. I mean, right now they're just grinning and bearing it. Right now, I mean, they're biting their tongue, they're biting their lip. I mean, they're just right now they're furious. But the next time they get to the bargaining table, I can guarantee you there's going to be some. There are going to be some hardline negotiations with the Players Association about some of these things that have been going on.
You know what, Mel? Truer words could not be more spoken than what you did. When you say stuff like you just did, I think we can all probably agree here that I enjoy Charles Barkley calling out today's players. I enjoyed the way he played anyways, a hard-nosed player. But to me, and Charles Barkley, we know is a Hall of Fame player to begin with, but I think he's more of a Hall of Fame analyst because he tells these guys the way it is, and we can definitely appreciate what he's done. I think let's just give a raise of hands, okay, right now to say that we really like Charles Barkley, right? Right.
I do. As an analyst, I do. As a basketball player, I didn't care for him, but as an analyst, I love hearing him because he says exactly how I feel.
Kudos, Charles. You got 4 people that really like you. A couple more things I want to get to before we wrap up the broadcast and do a couple of promos here. I do want to talk about a situation I was pretty close to. I don't know if I would call this guy a de facto general manager as much as a strong influence on the team, but I want to talk about Isaiah Thomas with the Detroit Pistons during the bad boy era. And the reason why I want to mention it is he's the one who probably had a lot to do with Jack McCloskey having Adrian Dantley sent out to Dallas for Mark Aguirre. And I'm going to tell you that Pistons strong locker room was what it was. And Adrian Dantley had an opportunity to win a championship ring. And I know Isaiah's influence certainly had a lot to do with that. I don't know if I call him a de facto general manager. Strong influence. I don't know if it's the right word. So, Rick Curti, give me a brief idea whether you think Isaiah Thomas was a de facto general manager. Doesn't have to be very long.
No, I don't. I think he was just a great player. I think he was a great leader. I think he was a great leader with the Pistons. I think he was a strong voice with the Pistons. I think he wanted the team he definitely wanted to win championships. He had that passion and hunger, and he probably just voiced his opinion. But no, he wasn't a de facto. To me, he was just a great leader on a great team.
Well, we all know that he had everything to do with that trade shipping Adrian Dantley out for Mark Aguirre. Of course, they played together in Chicago, so they're very close anyhow. But, you know, I covered the Pistons back then during the bad boy era when obviously basketball was good. And I know Steve Balestrieri had to deal with them a lot in New England when they fought against the Celtics. So you can talk about Isaiah Thomas in a little sense there. That, boy, I love those Pistons and Celtics rivalries. But what are your thoughts about Isaiah, Steve, and whether you feel he was a de facto general manager, at least in that particular instance?
No, I never got that impression during that time. Again, I think it just goes to, you know, he was an elite player. He had some, some say in personnel decisions, and he gave his opinion because he wanted to win. And those Pistons teams, you know, that was some great basketball back in the day. So I used to love watching the Pistons and Celtics go at it. And, you know, that was a great time to be watching basketball.
Mel?
You know, in a way, but not really. You know, I think it had to do more with style. I mean, they already knew how far they could go with AD. You know, they experienced that before in the past. You know, the one thing about, you know, I say about style, Adrian Dantley was more of a half-court basketball player. I mean, when the ball went to him in the low post, you weren't getting it back. It wasn't coming back out. It might have came back out for a repost, but he was gonna throw. He was gonna shoot the ball. And I loved Adrian Dantley. Don't get me wrong. High socks and the low top shoes. I loved Adrian Dantley. I wasn't real happy when they brought in Mark Aguirre, to be honest with you, but Mark Aguirre rather. But it worked out. But I think it had more to do with style. Them being able to get up and down the floor. AD was really playing a power forward at 6'4". You know, he's really a small guy. You had Bill Laimbeer, you had Sally, you had Rodman, so you had a big front court already. Probably need to get a little more agile. AD wasn't as agile as a Mark Aguirre wasn't. You know, Mark Aguirre had he was kind of he had a big old behind. So I mean, he played a little bit more defense. AD wasn't really a defensive guy either. So, you know, I think it had more to do with the style of play than And they probably came to Isaiah, hey, what do you think about we can get your guy here back? We're going to, this is going to have to give up. So what do you think about it? Yeah, he was all for it. Yeah, let's go for it. Because they knew how far they could go with Adrian Dantley because they knew where they went the year before. And Adrian Dantley could have still got a ring. I think he refused to get a ring because he did play with him up until the trade deadline. He could have still got a ring, but he refused to get a ring because he was a little upset about getting traded.
Well, that's putting it lightly. I lived it, so I know full well. I think you were right, though, Mel. He probably didn't want the ring, but, I know there was a lot to pack in. I just want to make an observation about another player real quickly, and then we'll go ahead and preview a couple shows and let everybody know how they can get a hold of us. Now, one situation, I lived that situation. Chuck Daly, Jack McCloskey, and I know that when Mark Aguirre got there, let me tell you, when he got in that locker room, Bill Lambier, Rick Mahorn, and Isaiah Thomas and the rest of that locker room laid down the law. Mark, we don't know what your reputation was in Dallas, but I guarantee you it's not going to be that way here. And if you understand the persona of the bad boys, let me tell you, I don't know whether going to court's worse than having to deal with what Mark Aguirre had to do in the Pistons locker room with that strong group that they had there, led by Isaiah. So I want to make mention of one thing here real quickly, and then I want to preview a couple shows and wrap this bad boy up. You don't talk about hockey a lot, but Jack Eichel forced his way out from Buffalo to Las Vegas because he insisted on a disc operation in his neck where he wanted it artificial. They wanted a fusion that was experimental. I'll tell you one thing, okay? They stripped him of his captaincy, and Buffalo was forced to go ahead. And you don't see much of this in hockey because hockey's one of the good boy sports where these guys play hard. They give it everything they have. They probably have more dental work than anybody. That's for another day. So, Rick, very quickly about Jack Eichel, okay? What are your thoughts about the way the new start that he has out in Las Vegas?
Well, I just think he left because he wanted to get this operation, it seemed like. They didn't agree. And when they stripped him of his captaincy, he's like, bye, get me out of here. I'm out of here. So I think that's what I had to do. You don't hear about it in hockey as much because more of a team player. These guys, you talk about passion. These guys come back with broken noses and no teeth and fractures on their skulls and stitches all. I mean, they look like Leatherface, and they're like, okay, I'm back. These are like the toughest guys ever, and so you don't hear about that in hockey. That passion to play, but for him, I think it was more about, hey, strip me. I want to get this operation not only for my career but for my life. And then you're going to strip me of my captaincy? I'm gone. Get me out of here.
All right. Well, we got a comment from Michael Rango. Gotta love Barkley. All right. Well, at least we know somebody likes him besides the four of us. All right, Steve Balestrieri, Jack Eichel, and I know, Mel, you can give a brief comment. Then I want to do some station identification here. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. I mean, when it comes to your health, I firmly sit in the avenue of the player here. You're talking about your long-term health. He wanted the surgery. He felt like he needed it. I'm totally backing Eichel on this one. I didn't like that they stripped him of his captaincy over that either. I thought that was stupid. I mean, at that point, you just say, like, okay, he wants to have the surgery. We don't really agree with it, but he's your best player. So you have to side with your own, captain at this point.
All right, Mel, some final thoughts on Eichel.
Well, I mean, I applaud the player. I mean, he's taking control of his body. I mean, you can't tell somebody what to do with their body. I wish, I think about some of the surgeries that I had, and they don't really tell you what the long-term ramifications are. They tell you what the short term is. Short term is 4 to 6 weeks you'll be back out there in the field. Long term, though, you're probably gonna need a knee replacement somewhere down the line. They don't give you that. Or maybe they did, and you didn't pay any attention. But I mean, I applaud the guy for, taking control of and being in control of his body and not allowing them to bully him into doing something that he didn't want to do, that he didn't feel was right for him.
Well, all I'll say about Eichel is I'm with you guys all the way. Eichel all the way. Buffalo Sabres haven't sniffed a Stanley Cup appearance in a long time. Vegas Golden Knights actually did it their expansion year. But that said, guys, I know we had an incredible broadcast. Okay, I know we talked about a lot. Let me just preview future shows very quickly. We'll have our final installment of the coaching carousel in a couple of weeks. We're going to have a Tom Brady, whether he's going to be retired or not. Have a guy from Tampa who's going to join Steve and I on a broadcast. We'll talk about Derek Jeter. Rick Curti will be a part of that one. And part 2 of the quarterback carousel will take place at the end of March here in the WSFT network. With that said, I know for those individuals that want to hear the audio version of this broadcast, you can do so on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe to us on the YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune, and of course, see it on the website, www.southfloridatribune.com. If you want to follow me on Twitter, at Tribune South Gets It Done, and you can email us as well at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If I went ahead and spoke about that too fast, well, you know what? You can always hit the rewind button. You can listen again. Or, for that matter, if you want all this information, go to www.southfloridatribune.com. It's all there, and that'll be your version of shorthand. With that said, Mel Farr, let everybody know how they get a hold of you.
You can reach me on all the social media at Mel Farr Jr. We have a website. You can find out what we have going on here in Atlanta and also in Detroit at melfar. The website is www.melfar.org.
All right, Steve Balestrieri.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at SteveB7SFG. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and I'm always available.
All right, Mr. Opinion.
You can contact me on my website at www.charlottebats.com. I'm also on Facebook at Charlotte MLB and also Charlotte Bats Baseball. I'm on Instagram as Charlotte Bats, on Twitter as Charlotte Bats, and I'm also on LinkedIn under Rick Curti, Curti, and our email address is cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com if you have any comments or questions.
And I want to let everybody know the title of this show is Defacto General Managers. We gave you a lot of them to work with, and I hope that you had an opportunity to enjoy this edition of the Sports Exchange. My dream team is what I have right in front of me. Steve Balestrieri, Mel Farr Jr., Rick Curti, Mr. Opinion. I'm so proud of you guys. You guys, in my opinion, are the best, and I am proud to have you on week in and week out. To me, guys like you make this very, very enjoyable. So on behalf of my dream team, Rick Curti, Steve Balestrieri, Mel Farr Jr., my name is Scott Morganroth, thanking you for joining us on this edition of the Sports Exchange. And until the next time, we look forward to seeing you again. Take care, everybody, and you have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks.